Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to be presenting today, and I'm also going to be at the controls for letting people in. So if I'm not looking directly at the screen, please know that's the reason why. So we've been very fortunate to have a number of guests on here. Just recapping, first we had Bob Rathbon, who came on and spoke about motivation and creating an agenda, creating your regiment and how that looks, and in this time right now. And then the same thing for Narita, as she came on. Narita Parks came on and spoke about the importance of the COVID-19 and how it's affecting us as student athletes. Hopefully you guys have been researching information as well as receiving information on how that looks for student athletes right now who are outside training. There's some important articles out there about that right now, as the Beltline is still open in Georgia. I know in California, down at Venice Beach, I've gotten reports they're still open down there. And so one of the things that we want to encourage our student athletes to do is to be cognitive of respecting your body, respecting your mind, and knowing to make the right decisions. That is key. Then we had Ryan Stewart come on and speak about Ryan Stewart came on and spoke heavily about the importance of time management as being a student athlete, how that looks from a spiritual sense, through faith and through God, and understanding the importance of creating that solid time management so that you understand the importance of a network being your net worth, and your net worth being a part of your network. So today I'm actually going to open it up a little bit. I'm going to kind of raise the bar a little bit. I know there's a storm brewing outside, so I think I want to create that storm inside a little bit as well. I just received an email from Amazon Photos asking me about memories for 2019, and it made me think about the memories that I'm creating right now. How can I do? How can I be? How can I become better? Why can't I reach the end goal? What will it take to get or to become that? And as a parent, whether you're a coach, student athlete, husband, spouse, wife, boss, teacher, or whatever position you hold, this webinar today is about perfecting our model through perspective. So this is all about perspective. And again, there'll be open discussion. I expect for both parents and students to ask questions. This is an interactive platform today, not a lot of lecturing, but I want you guys to ask questions, which you've always wanted as a parent to ask your child. Maybe you haven't because it wasn't the right setting one-on-one. And maybe vice versa, as a child, maybe you didn't ask your parent this question because you felt like, well, they're going to come at me a certain way. I want you to use this as an indirect form of communication in a direct conversation method. So presenting it to me, I can give an answer, kind of an open-ended answer to give everybody perspective on what we all as children and as adults may be thinking. I want to start by what we're talking about is preparing yourself for the future through the now. We're in that anxiety of the unknown, I'll call it. And in that anxiety of the unknown, of course, we talk about the virus, COVID-19. We talk about all the other things that create that anxiety, loss of jobs, not being able to get in the gym. We talk about all the things that are problematic. But I think at the same time, we're also learning how to put control in our faith, which I think is key. I saw a sermon this morning, which really broke it down. And it talked about the importance of how the devil has been working all this time without COVID-19. And through that, it's been us being on media. It's been us doing the wrong things, not communicating with our family. It's been us doing things that are outside of the spectrum of what we should be doing. Now with this happening, everything is shifting and everything is changing. And the sermon I watched this morning talked about God's plan for this day and how that works with today's situation. I want to start with the parents, and I want to be direct. Some of us put all of our hope that our kids will get us out of our current situation. That's just real talk. Some of you guys know what I mean when I say that. I'm talking about our student athletes. We're hoping that they get that scholarship so that they can get us in a better situation. Some of us are focused on what we need to do as parents, trusting that our kids will follow. And some of us hope our kids will not get us into certain situations. I know that, tomorrow's never promised, but what we're doing about today is what matters. Coaches, some of you have let the kids down. You've let the student athletes down by not parenting the way that you were parented back in the day. And a lot of us as adults understand this model. The neighbors were parents. People down the street were parents. Everybody parented you. And today that shifted to where parents, whether you're single parent or married, parents are working, and we're relying on coaches, we're relying on teachers to be those parents. And I think that model has shifted a lot because we're all focused on self. So we lead towards the student athletes. They're waiting on others. They're waiting on the coaches. They're waiting on us as parents. And because of that, I think they act one way, but want others to see us a different way. And we'll get into that. But right now, I want to talk about game time performance. This is the most crucial part of what I feel is performance over fear. This applies to athletes and non-athletes. I think game performance time is your everyday. It's not in your moment. Students, think about this. You got your pants sagging at times on one side of town, but then on the other side of town, you're all dressed up, completely different. You curse and use racial undertones at school or in other places with your friends, but then when you're around other people, you switch it up. You call yourself a student athlete, but you don't have the same goals aligned for both words. You respect the ball, but not the book. Or you're respectful on the court, but disrespectful in the classroom. You respect the outcome, but not the work that it takes to get there. And that's really something that we talk about when we're speaking about game time performance, where I feel that a lot of us just aren't ready. Why? I think it's because you keep flipping the switch. I use the light switch mentality when I do actual training with student athletes, and we talk about flipping the switch. It's so easy to flip that switch on and off, tell somebody what they want to hear, tell somebody what, or do something that we think that they want to see. However, when we do it so much, that switch starts to short circuit. And it's the same thing you're doing with your mind and your body and your spirit every day. As you keep flipping that switch on and off, you're losing consistency. And I'm not just speaking to student athletes. I think for us as parents too, 1 minute we're parenting and coaching, and the next minute we're trying to be the best friend. And that is something that, overall, we have to look at ourselves and how we decide to change that model to become a better game performer. For student athletes, these instances are examples of the way you short circuit every single day. I want to open up the floor to some of the questions right now before I move on to creating habits. Again, this is an open conversation, but I want questions that are geared towards game time performance, how we restructure ourselves mentally and physically and emotionally for becoming better performers on and off the court. I open the floor to questions.
What do you do, like, to prepare for the season during this time?
Great question. So during this time, I know we've had some people come on and talk about, I know Bob came on and talked about how you can prepare by staying focused on your regimen. So a perfect example, I mentioned a lot of student athletes every day, is don't change up today or tomorrow what you would do then. Meaning that if I knew then that this was coming today, what would I have done differently? Would I have trained stronger at that time? Would I have woken up earlier? Would I have been more aggressive with my days? We have to ask ourselves how consistent we are with that. To answer that question, one of the things that you can do is create that regimen. I'm going to go into habits soon, about creating habits, doing things that others aren't willing to do. And I think it's important that we realize that right now is the best time to change our momentum. It's the best time to redirect our focus. So for those of us that are sleeping in late just because there's no school, because it was spring break, or for those of us that are being lazy with how we train, it's not going to change once things go back to normal. You can't keep flipping that switch on and off. Wake up early, all right? Go to bed early. Don't stay up until the odd hours of the night just because we're not back at school. Eat properly. Listen to your parents and what they're trying to help instill in you, okay? When you practice with a purpose. Don't just practice. There's tons of videos out there that show you the proper way to do things. You take those videos, you analyze it, you absorb it, and then you go outside or inside and work hard on it. Set a goal, but don't just go through the motions. When you just go through the motions, that's what puts you on the bench as a 13th and 14th, 15th person. When you set a goal, it changes the outcome. All right. Hopefully that helped give you a little bit of perspective for that. Any other questions? All right. I want to get into.
Sorry, I have one.
Yes.
I need a little bit of little guidance. I mean, myself and my wife both played Division I college sports, and were able to be very successful.
We can't. You're mumbling. We can't hear you.
My bad. Is that better?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I can hear it.
Okay. So both of us played Division I sports, and we're just trying to get our sons to understand that the grind is real. And at times they kind of seem to have the thought process and mindset where we're just kind of nagging and this and that and the other. But we're trying to push them so they understand what it takes for them to get where they want to be. And so I'm just looking for a way to be able to say that and them understand and understand it's not me nagging.
Okay. I think I understood a lot of that, a big portion of that question. So the question was how to come across, be effective without nagging or seeming like you're always coming across nagging to the other person, to your student athlete or whomever about the outcome, how they can progress with it. And I think one of the biggest things that we lose focus of is this right here, paper. Our kids don't set goals anymore. We talk about what we're going to do, but then we never write it down. We never really have a strategy in place. And I look back at growing up when it was important to write those goals down. Even if you knew what you wanted to do, you still wrote it down. It gave you a clear picture. And I would really challenge you guys to do something like that to start. Have your student athlete write down their goals. That goal may be different than what you guys have ever discussed, but it gives you an understanding of how to write sub goals to that goal. And there's even sub habits that are created, which we'll talk about in a minute. But those sub goals are important because a lot of times our kids see a goal, which is I want to go to college on a scholarship, or I want to play in the NFL, NBA, MLB, whatever, but there's no sub goals to get there. And there's a million plus sub goals that they have to follow in order to reach that goal. I would say the first thing to do is sit down with them and let them write out their goals. Give them a few minutes, write out the goals, and then both of you guys discuss what your goals are. Your goals may be different. So don't just have your student athlete write the goals out. You write out your goals too as a parent, and then you compare the goals. That's part of the communication that's lost. From there, you guys can both create sub goals for your student athlete's goals. And I think it'll give you clear understanding as to the direction they want to go. And it takes away the nagging, because a lot of times we do nag. We tell our kids, hey, make sure you get up early if you really want it. Hey, make sure you follow these directions. And a lot of times it doesn't need to happen that way. What ends up needing to happen a lot of times is that if a person sees their goals written down somewhere on the wall or anywhere, eventually becomes a habit, eventually becomes something they just follow naturally. And so I challenge you to do that first. Sit down, both of you guys write out the goals, compare the goals, and then begin developing sub goals for that strategy to get there. Did that answer your question, Mr. Robinson?
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Question? Yes.
What's too much nagging coming from a parent?
That's a great question. So honestly, again, these are all perspectives that I'm giving. I think that, for me as working with other sports psychologists and school psychologists, there's no perfect answer. I think every child is different. Every adult is different. I think we're all just designed differently. We all have different scripts that make us who we are. However, I can use the example of my own family. I would be considered a nagger. I'm always one that's looking for answers. I'm always one that's looking for the solution to something, like a fixer. And that's not always a healthy thing. sometimes it's better just to kind of sit back and wait. And I also speak to myself on this. I know my daughter would appreciate this, that it's important sometimes to understand that you gave the message and you're just waiting to see what happens. I think that once we get to a point of repeating the same thing over and over and over again, that's when it becomes, it really becomes questionable whether or not we're nagging, whether or not we are aggressively pursuing a solution. And when I say that, like I always say that when you tell a child something once, you give them a second chance. After that second chance, you don't repeat it. You move on because they never wanted to hear it in the first place. And it's the same thing with nagging. If you say something to your child and they don't follow after the second time, it's because they don't want to. It's not because they're not hearing you, not understanding you. Sometimes as parents, we don't let our children fall in order to let them get back up. And because we're afraid as to when they're going to fall, how long it'll take them to get back up. It's not our job to figure out how long. It's our job to let them fall. And then once they fall, we're there to support them as they climb back up off the cliff or out of the water or wherever you see them in this image. I think that too much nagging is, for me personally, after 2 times. If I'm saying it a 3rd time, I know psychologically that you don't want to hear this, and I have to take a different approach to get my solution. So I'm not going to keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. I'm going to find a different direction to that same outcome. Hopefully that was answered a little bit.
I got a question.
Yes.
So as a coach, when you've tried everything you can try to reach an individual, and when you don't want to say give up, but there's no more hope, but when you know someone is just not listening to you and there's nothing else you can do for them, what do you do as a coach?
So the first thing I would ask is, have you interacted with the parent? Are you and the parent on the same page? Because sometimes the parent's objective is completely different than yours. And so that would be my first question. Do you interact with the parent?
Yes.
Okay. So at that point, I would say you would have an idea of whether or not that parent has the same objective as you. If they don't, you can't force feed something that you're not around them as long as the main source. So a perfect example is if my child spends 90% of their time away from me, and then I expect to give them 10% of influence and expect them to grow past that 90% they're getting somewhere else, it's never going to work. You guys have to be on the same page as coach and the parent. If the parent's objective is to get their child, as I said earlier, to get them out of a situation, that's not your objective. And what could end up happening is it could end up backfiring, because what will happen is that parent just wants to shine in their child's life. They want to be their best friend. They want to look good. And then all of a sudden now they've posted things on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. And you're promoting a coach to that person. And where's the first place the coach is going? Straight to those posts. Now that the coach sees those things, they're taken away from your reputation. So as a coach, you have to be very careful not to just jump into the child's life, jump into the parent's life too, to find out exactly what their direction is, to find out if it even aligns. Because if it doesn't, you could be doing more harm than good.
I think that's kind of what happened. And I'm in a situation like that right now. That's why I'm asking. But I'm struggling with something. All
right. And hopefully, without putting anybody on the spot, hopefully that gets resolved. Hopefully that parent's on here or that student's on here. And hopefully you guys can connect communication. I'm not going to say whether it's positive or negative. You can always find positive resolve, but I think it's important to understand that it's not going to be a comfortable conversation. And it might not be a comfortable conversation when that child's not playing for you. I mean, it's not.
That's what's about to happen. I'm going to have to cut him.
And as we get further to talking about winning and winners, hopefully that person's on here and understands the importance of being a winner versus winning, because there's a complete difference between those two. I want to jump real quick into creating habits, doing the things others aren't willing to do. So when we talk about that, we talk about what is our passion? What are you passionate about? Most are passionate. Most of us have a a big passion, and then we also have things we're least passionate about. So I want to teach our student athletes how to model this habit format. This is the same thing that my friend and mentor, Dr. Anderson, did with the Air Force Academy. He does the leadership for them and for the athletic training center, Olympic training center in Colorado Springs. So one of the things he pointed out at the beginning was taking everything that you are least passionate about and putting it at the top of your day. Everything you are least passionate about and putting it at the top of your day. I am least passionate about reminding my child to do things when they start their day. I'm least passionate about that. I'm least passionate about things that my boss or my teacher will get on me about. I know when I get to work, or if I'm a student, I get to school, I know the teacher's going to say these things to me. There are ways to create habits by getting in front of these things. You organize it from the least passionate to the most. And I'll tell you why this is important. It's important because you'll see the change, you'll see the shift in momentum of setting goals. And how that works is it's a simple ratio. So in basketball, you're least passionate about conditioning, but you're most passionate about playing a game. It's the same thing in work, if you think about it. Most people work out, they do their toughest workout at the beginning of the day. The reason they do that is because it's good for the body, it's good for the mind, it's good for the spiritual, social aspects of how you focus emotionally. But how many of you guys do that consistently? How many of you are least passionate about conditioning, move it to the front of the day, are willing to get up now that you're at home, school starts at 9, or should start at 9, and you're up at 7:30, 8 o'clock doing your first workout? You don't have to raise your hand. We're online. School example. You're least passionate about school, but you're more passionate about socializing with your friends. And this friend is so cool, and this person is awesome, but I'm not passionate about school. I just like seeing everybody there. Homework-wise, I'm least passionate about a specific subject, but I'm more passionate about a specific subject that I love the most. Do this for everything inside of each one of these examples. Break down your habits into sub-habits. So as I was speaking to Mr. Robinson about setting the goals, it's the same exact structure. You can set sub-habits within your habits. So my habit every day is to wake up at 7:30. Now, if I wake up at 7:30, my next least habit that I enjoy doing is making sure that I'm prepared for the day. So I need to get that done. But then from there, it might go into a workout, which I know as a student athlete, right now I should be working out twice a day, if not more, because I have the time. And we'll even talk about stretching, because I know that was a conversation piece last week. I didn't jump into that. But there are certain things that you can do that are condition-based for stretching as well, and still gives time for the muscles to regain their strength. In terms of creating these habits, create your least passionate habit, your most passionate habit, write them all down on a list. Whatever you're least passionate about, most passionate about. Then create your routine, starting with your least passionate things. So I use an example of my boy JW, Jay Wright, and he used to train Kobe. And even when Kobe Bryant stopped playing, he still used to go down to Jay Wright's facility at 4:30 in the morning to train. 4:30 in the morning. It did not change from when he was playing basketball and when he stopped playing. It became a habit. These are the types of habits I'm talking about. I'm using him as an example because 4:30 is early. How many of us wake up to get into the word spiritually at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning? I haven't, and I need to. How many of us take our least passionate thing, which is reading, and absorb our mind with information before we start our day? I haven't, and I need to. How many of us have woken up at 6 in the morning to work out because we know that we hate working out in the middle of the day and it probably won't get done? I haven't, and I need to. We have to all get out of that mentality of I haven't and I need to. And in order to do that, we have to be realistic about our habits. This structure creates the best practice formula for your habits. Do the things others aren't willing to do. Stop trying to repeat what everybody does. Because a lot of times, if you put in the time the right way, you will build your weaknesses and break through opportunities. If you continue to wait and have excuses, watch what happens. You'll be the one that's trying to post things to make yourself look better, which I'll get into in a minute because marketing is important as a student athlete. But when you create better habits, you create a formula for success. And those habits don't start with waking up at 7, 8, 9 in the morning and texting my girlfriend or my boyfriend or whoever and just getting on there and just, hey, what's going on? Now all of a sudden I'm on social media at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then before you know it, it's 12 o'clock and I haven't done any of the schoolwork because I know I'm at home, but I know they don't know if I've done it or not because I just need to turn it in by the end of the day. That's creating a bad habit. It's creating a virus is what it's doing. You're going to do today what you did yesterday. You're going to do tomorrow what you did today. So you've got to start creating that better habit. I joked with some coaches earlier about this. Students walk into the gym with flip-flops on. I can't coach because of that for all the coaches that are on here. When my students come into the gym, they need to walk onto that floor with respect, as if it were their last practice, as if it were the thing that they didn't know if the coach for North Carolina was there or if dad knew somebody that knew somebody. I'm coming in there prepared to perform. That is a part of great game day performance, creating good habits. That doesn't mean that I have to sit in the corner to change, but that means when I walk in the gym, I'm mentally and physically prepared. I don't walk out onto the floor, put my bag down the side, and then come out and shoot in flip-flops until the coach arrives. I get ready. I break a sweat. And we could all tell stories as coaches. We could all tell you stories about people that used to train early. When I was in Detroit, Grant Hill would be there early with Allen Houston shooting. Allen Houston would get up hundreds of shots every single day. He learned this model from Larry Bird. He would stay after games if he was off from shooting threes. He would stay after the game and just stay at the gym wherever we were, and he would just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. That creation of habit was something that as you start to get older, you'll realize those habits don't stop. When you're a student athlete, you stay a student athlete. When you are a parent, you stay a parent. It doesn't stop happening that way. So as you create those habits, if you had a good habit when you're young, you'll have a better habit when you're older. If you have a mediocre habit when you're young, you'll have a somewhat subpar habit when you're older. You've got to create these habits now as a student athlete. In order to do that, it's important that you are willing to break down your least passionate things and your most passionate things and be willing to put the least passionate things to the front. Any questions on that before I move on? All right. Creating the winner over winning mentality. Going back to something I was stating earlier. Why be the next when you can become the only? That's something that I was told a long time ago, and it was actually my story that I rarely ever tell, but my story when I was younger, when I was in college. I was going to transfer from UCLA my first year because I wasn't getting playing time. And Magic Johnson was in the gym. We used to all play together during the summer. So he would always have me go against Shaq because he always felt like play against Shaq, Shaq's coming back. He's coming to LA. Everybody's in LA. Everybody's playing. And by playing against him, you would start to understand how to create that winner mentality. The winner mentality wasn't the outcome. It was the process. That's what led me to Start Conditioned Minds, because that's what I do for a living is I teach the process over the outcome. What Magic did on that day was, one, he kept me at UCLA, but he also kept me focused on what I was good at. What you become good at isn't necessarily the whole. Okay, when I say the whole, for a basketball player, for example, some of you are good shooters and you can score 30 points. Some of you guys are great rebounders. Some of you guys are just great hustle players. If you master one thing well, it will carry you a whole lot further than doing a 30-point game, a 5-point game, a 2-point game, and a 60-point game. Because what will end up happening is you're going to create your highlight reel with a 60-point game, and every college coach in America, unless they've been blinded by the light, knows that the only video they're going to see are all your makes or everything you do well. Okay? So in order to create that winner over winning mentality, there's a number of things that we are looking for. Why do you want to be the next? The possible reasons as a coach or when I do coaches clinics, I always tell coaches, I'm always imploring them to look for the psychological pieces of a student athlete. I always tell them, look to see if they're lacking in confidence to create their own routine. Are they waiting for somebody to create their own routine? Some kids hide behind their parents when they were younger on the bench. They weren't playing. They looked to mom and dad for somebody to speak up to the coach instead of them going to the coach. Or they were unsure and worried about the outcome being accepted. So at school, they do things because they're unsure how things are going to go. But in order to be accepted by the kids, who are the majority, I'm going to have my pants sag. I'm going to use the N word. I'm going to say things that, relate to them instead of reaching out of that perspective of what everyone else is doing to become my own. The questions I presented for the parents and the coaches when I do these coaches clinics were tough questions. One of the questions I ask are you training your kids to be winners by giving them the tools and not the materials? Those are two different things. The tools are time. The tools are an ear to listen. The tools are a hand to hold or a shoulder to lean on. Those are tools. The materials are the iPhone 22 when that comes out, the car, the shoes, all of the new stuff to make them feel like they're appreciated by you. Those are two completely different things. How many of us spend time as parents and coaches giving our kids the tools versus the materials? Can your child pick up the phone right now and have a conversation with their principal of their school? Can they have a 5-minute conversation with the principal? That is one thing I always ask high school coaches when I go to speak to them about their student athletes. Can your student athlete go to the principal right now and just have a conversation, just a general conversation about anything? Nothing's planned, no script. Or do they need guidance to be able to communicate? If they need that kind of guidance, we're doing something wrong. We're not giving them the tools of communication. We're not challenging them to step out of their comfort zone. We're letting them sit behind a screen and push buttons or sit in the background and not be seen or heard. Can your child pick up the phone right now and have a conversation with a college coach? I guarantee you, if your child has been posting things online that are inappropriate, they're not going to want to talk to a college coach right now, because most student athletes know that college coaches do their recruiting off of Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. So most kids, not most, I take that back. I don't know most. Many kids are going to have a problem communicating with coaches because they're going to be wondering what the coach knows about them already. This is a problem because there's a difference between the winner and winning. Winners do the right thing, not trying to predict the outcome. Winning is all about predicting the outcome. So as a winner, I can use tons of people. We could talk about Michael Jordan losing and winning more, or losing more than he won. We could talk about, everybody's got a story. However, I'll put it this way. Has your child been putting themselves in a dangerous position to fail? When I talk about that, I'm talking about strategic marketing. That's the key to our identity. So when we market ourselves by going out, we look a certain way. When we present ourselves to people, we present a certain way with a certain language, a certain tone. Parents, for college, your kids aren't getting the scholarship. You're getting the scholarship. You're all in. Some of the content that our kids are using isn't going to get them there. Some of your content with your kids' ability doing their own marketing is important to relate to how they communicate effectively. If they're not talking to their teachers and you have to go talk to the teacher for them, we're failing them. If they can't talk to their coach about playing time, or they can't talk to their coach about what they need to work on to get better, we're failing them. If they can't talk to you about their life when they're at home, we're failing them. Some of our student athletes feel that no matter what they say, it's going to be judged. And I'll speak for a student athlete right now. If I were a young person in their shoes, I would think I'm not going to say anything to my parent because they already know everything. They're going to judge me on whatever I tell them. And no matter what happens, they're going to tell me I'm in the wrong. So I don't even want to tell them anything. That's a problem. This is why when I go back to talking about the goals and the habits, creating those habits is important. In those habits, The one thing that I did least before, now that the coronavirus hit, I spent less time with my child or children. Now I spend more time with my children with this situation by creating it and putting the least habit at the top. My least habit is spending time with them. Now that is at the top of my day. I will wake up and make sure that I spend time with them before I do anything else. That is the same type of situation we talk about with strategic marketing when we're failing our kids. We talked about buying them the phone. We talked about buying them shoes. We talked about trying to make them happy. That's not it. So the question that coach just asked about, the situation where he's trying to teach one thing, but feels like the parent's not on the same page. This message I'm speaking right now is to the parents. We have to step up. We cannot dictate the strategic platform for our kid, how they're going to look, their identity. They do that. But we have to give them the tools to do that. And if you don't have the tools to do that, you should be talking to the coach. I always like to say, if you're a single mom and you got a coach that's a male figure and a great role model, use that coach like a big brother for your child. If you are a single dad with a daughter, it's the exact same thing. If you see a female coach in that realm of whatever your child is doing, lean on that coach to be a big sister. But together, you guys have to communicate. It can't be one communicating one thing and the other one feeling another way. The identity of the child is going to be misunderstood. Students, this is real talk. Some of you are failing your parents. You're on social media, and I say this over and over again religiously. Social media is your greatest weapon. And when I say your greatest weapon, I mean it like this. You don't realize just how many people are looking at your information, your picture. So if I'm posting one thing and I have a 3.5 GPA, I made the principal's honor roll, I have a scholarship to university, and now all of a sudden I post myself out there with no shirt on, pants sagging, I'm using words I shouldn't be using, doing a video real quick, and I didn't even think twice about it. You can lose that scholarship. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's go back to the habits. Let's go back to talking about winners over winning. Let's go back to talking about understanding your role as a player, as a student athlete. I could be the best shot blocker in the country, but the moment that coach sees that, it's a different identity that they see. They don't see the shot blocking anymore. What they see is a situation that could become a problem. Most schools in the top, if you're talking about D1, even D2, even D3, they're looking for identity. They're looking for student athletes that they don't have to worry about when they get to school, and they can focus on athletics and academics. Student athlete, student first, athlete second. I say this over and over and over again when I come to AAU programs and I watch the practices. I watch to see how people walk in the gym. I watch to see how coaches respond to student athletes. I watch to see how parents respond to their student athlete. I watch to see exactly who in that gym wants it and why they want it. Does the parent want it more than the child? If the parent wants it, if you want it more than your child, you're in the wrong business. And you're playing for the wrong kind of coaches, because the coaches that I like to invite here, the coaches I love to work with, want that end result to be the same goal that's aligned with the student and the parent. Not the parent's dream, but the student's dream. So in order to get that, it's important that you guys understand the dangers of social media and the weapon that you're using it as. College coaches go to those things first and foremost. With the coronavirus, I cannot emphasize this enough. The moment your coach calls a coach, the coach has no way to reference you other than social media. They can't call your school and get your information. They can go on NCAA if you've done all that, but it's still not giving them the identity of who you are. Stop using social media as a weapon, because you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. Coaches, if you have these players, either get their parents to understand this. Parents, if you're listening, understand this. Give your children the tools of responsibility. Don't give them the tool of an iPhone. The tool of responsibility means that they're willing to understand what your expectations are. Not saying they're going to make a mistake. I mean, we've all made mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But we don't expect to control our kids. That's not why we're here. That's not why we're put on this earth. But we can give them the tools by setting the example, talking to them about the importance of preparing, and being there to pick them up when they fail. I cannot tell you enough, that last one is left out so many times. We as parents will be there to pick you up as a student athlete if you fail. All right? Your parent will pick you up. But I encourage parents on this webinar to let your kids fall. Because if you don't, when their coach starts to look at them and starts to figure out their identity, it's going to be judgment. That's what social media does. It lets them judge you. It lets me judge who you are. Your pants are sagging. You're using certain words. That's not what we want to represent. Students, how you present yourself defines your image. On screen, making every shot in a highlight reel. For those of you guys that do highlight reels, I laugh sometimes because I've had some coaches send me highlight reels of student athletes. They ask me if I've heard of this person, and I watch the reel, and the student never misses a shot. It shows everything great. The best videos that you can send right now, and I heard a coach say this earlier to his student athletes, James Forrest, was that he wants videos of student athletes that are putting in the work right now. That is the most important piece of marketing, strategic marketing. As a coach, coaches want to see what you're willing to put in the off season. They know how to get you to tune it up during the season, but they want to see what you're willing to put in right now. And if you're out there sending in a video, spending more time putting together a video showing you make 30 shots in a row, they're going to judge your identity. You haven't created one, because every single video that comes to them, do you think they're throwing the misses in there? Absolutely not. They're showing all the makes. A coach would prefer to see your work ethic. Your work ethic is right now. You're waking up in the morning. You timestamp that. Your video is timestamped at 6:30. And it's not one time. It's timestamped 6:30 every single day for the week. That's on your video. That's what you're sending to your coaches. That's what they can push forward to other coaches to realize this is the type of student athlete we want at our school. Those are the secrets for you guys that are trying to market yourselves right now. When it comes down to creating your identity, stay off of social media with all the nonsense. When you're training, train with a purpose. Create habits. Go from your least important habit, your least favorite habit, to your most favorite habit. My most favorite habit is shooting. So my shooting is going to take place in the evening time. My least favorite thing to do in the academic realm was homework. My homework is going to take place before my shooting, because my shooting was the best thing for me. Or practice. Parents, you control that platform, that model I just showed you. You control that. Please believe that. If you see a child that's putting more effort into their basketball than they are their school, you're failing. You're failing giving them the tools to understand how to create better habits. Are there any questions?
I mean, also for parents, man. It's for parents.
So to piggyback off what Rodney just said, I'm gonna give a couple of examples. Everyone knows about Ryan Matumbo, right? But no one has never seen Ryan work out. No one's never seen Ryan do anything besides basketball. So I hit Ryan and I said, Ryan, and he's on this call. He can stop me when I'm lying. I said, I need you to send me some videos of you doing some cardio stuff. He sent me 2 videos. And within 72 hours, he picked up a Florida offer. Minnesota called him, and Virginia Tech called me, and they both are going to offer 2 videos. My son, Jalen, who's 15, everybody watched him play, go to the state championship, all that good stuff. But I don't talk about him. The reason why I don't talk about him, because I know he's lazy as hell. So I'm not going to even listen. I'm not going to put my name on a kid if I don't trust him. And that's my child. And he told me, he said, while we down, let's do some work. And I said, if we can do some work, we're going to have to do it for 30 days. But you're going to have to just trust me and do it. Within 5 days, he picked up an offer. I called Jalen Jackson and said, send me a couple of tapes of you working out. Within 3 days, 3 schools called me about him and told me they want to offer him. Because, guys, everybody know that kids can play basketball. They know that. And I'm talking with there's not a college that I don't talk to on a daily basis. I've told kids time and time again, stay off of social media posting garbage on there. Quit liking garbage on there. But I got some kids who listen and I got others that don't listen. And I'm telling you guys, if I'm telling you to send me your videos or you doing some cardio stuff, I'm not depending on your mother to send it. I'm not depending on your father to send it. I don't think there's a kid on my team that don't have a smartphone or iPhone or Beats or PS4. And most of you parents know I am just not the bullshitting type. If you want me to help you, I can help you. But it's just like Rodney saying, we got to stop babying these kids and doing everything for them. And they got to start helping themselves, especially these 17 and under kids. Especially them. You guys got to pick it up and do what you're supposed to do. And I'm going to say this one last time because I'm still pissed off about something. The next kid I see that's on my team that's cussing on what they pants off, you cut. If you already paid me your money, good, you won't get it back. Will not get it back. So don't tell your mama, your lawyer, whoever, they can waste their time calling me. This is nonsense. And I just sent out tapes on these kids. And this is how they repay me because my name is out here bad behind 2 jackasses and a parent that just don't get it. But that same parent gonna come call me in 3 months asking me, why haven't I gotten a call about such and such? And you've already displayed why you're not gonna get a call. You've already showed the people who you are. This stuff is serious, guys. Nobody gonna make $100,000 to $300,000 investment. Especially, keep this in mind. They can't watch these boys play no basketball. They only seen them with their high school. So they have to trust someone who's coaching them and see them and know their background, their history. And that's the first thing they're asking. What is the background of kids? Guys, if I can't put my name on you and sign off on you, honestly, I won't. And right now, I am getting a lot of calls, which is a great thing because we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing. For the most part, we're doing a tremendous job. I got kids on the 15 and under team that's putting in tremendous work that schools have already called me about. These boys hadn't even played a game with us. So trust me, the power of this social media, like Rodney said, that is a weapon, but you got to use it the right way.
So thank you, James. So I know that on this webinar, it's a lot of predominantly Team Forest, which is great. So you guys can hear this message and understand from your own coach the importance of what he's looking for as a coach. I think it's important as a coach to explain to everyone, the parents and the students included, what your expectations are. I will tell you guys why I talk about social media as a weapon. And I promised myself I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you. So what I do for a living right now is, yes, I'm an athletic director, played professional sports, have always been into technology. Used to be a hacker when I was young, used to do a lot of things technology-wise. I will tell you right now, it's already been developed because we're one of the leaders in developing this, is the ability to pull data from all social media platforms, which other companies can do this too, third-party platforms, can pull your data and give you an identity so that coaches and everybody don't have to go fishing through your social media. These are applications that are readily available to these coaches. So when James talks about don't use social media this way, and your parent says don't use social media this way, I'm telling you from a artificial intelligence designer and as a technology guru, it's already been done, and we're picking apart your identity right now as you look into what you're putting in there. So when a coach puts in what they're looking for a 6'10" center, and all these people get pulled up, they will eventually have the ability to plug in this module, which will dissect all of the information that you've put online on social media, build a rubric around it, and give that coach a report. Anything that's flagging what they're looking for. These are the tools that are already out there. They're already being developed. So I'm imploring you to do the right thing on social media, because it's a heartbeat away. And I hate to think that a lot of you guys are going to shoot yourself in the foot with this by doing that. The last thing, healthy training and stretching. I know a parent asked last week about the stretching and healthy training. I want to ask all of you right now, what does a healthy training day look like mentally to you? I prefer a student athlete answer this. What does a healthy training day look like to you mentally? It only takes one to lead.
All right, can I go?
Absolutely.
Supposed to start with my point guard, not my center. But go ahead, Junior.
All right, so like a healthy training day, like right now for me, like if I got school starting at 8:30, like I'll be up at 7. I'll get on a bike for 15 minutes. Then I'll do like 3 sets of whatever lift I'm doing that morning, and then I'll go to school from 8:30 to 12, and then after school I'll knock out my homework about like 90 minutes, and then my mom has told me to start reading, like now that we're in quarantine. So I got a book on business that I'm reading for like 30 minutes a day, like 25 pages every day. And then I'll go on like a run with one of my boys in the afternoon. And then that'll be my workout and my school stuff for the day.
That's great. And I would say, first and foremost, I congratulate Mom on being proactive and making sure that you're reading, because I know that was something Bob talked about, and Ryan talked about that too. Stuart talked about that this past week. Reading right now is probably one of the more important things to do to stimulate your mind, because a lot of times we forget to do it unless we're forced to. And there's so much information that our brains can handle, and we only use a very minuscule percentage of it. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I'm pretty sure if I calculate it correctly, it's between 5 and 9%. We don't use a big portion at all, even close to half of our brain, even 25% of our brain, which means that if we're not reading and not absorbing information, we're just doing social media, we're just doing what other people are giving us, telling us how we should feel, it's not going to affect a positive outcome for our day. So that's the first thing I would congratulate Mom on. Second thing, I congratulate you on getting up early with a game plan. I know the person L asked earlier about what's a good model for keeping busy during this time. And Ryan just stated it, waking up with a game plan. Woke up, riding the bike, he's got his 3 sets he's doing with lifting. He's got a game plan, and he sticks to that regiment, which becomes a habit. So even when school goes back into session, he may change up the time to a little earlier, but he'll stick with those habits. What ends up happening is a coach sees that routine. Coaches always want to know what their student athletes do before they get to college. The reason they want to know that is because they want to know if their routine fits with what you're doing. And if you tell them a lackluster routine that's not consistent, believe me, they're going to look elsewhere. Creating that healthy training day is important. Whether you're a student athlete or a parent, it doesn't matter. We have to create that healthy training day. So that's a great job, Ryan. How and why is it important to stretch every day? This is something that is going to be important for all of us as student athletes to realize. Can anybody tell me why it's important to stretch every day?
Hello.
Yes.
We should stretch every day because stretching help us grow and it relieves our muscles from all the hard work we put on them.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. So I'll expand on that answer. There should be pre and post. Okay. Just like when you get into fitness or you get into nutrition, there should be a pre-drink and a post-drink. When you get into weightlifting, there's pre-conditioning and there's post-conditioning or cool down. It's the exact same model in stretching. None of the models have changed. So a perfect example of that is there's different types of stretching. I won't go into the whole theory of everything, but there's static, ballistic, and dynamic stretches. There's dynamic stretches that you can do. You can actually research them on YouTube, dynamic stretches that you can do as a pre-workout. The reason why you do that is because it gets the blood flowing, it stretches the muscles without them contracting, and it allows you to have more flexibility going into your routine. So as you become more strenuous on the muscles, they're already loose. If I walk into a gym and I start jumping, I start doing dunks on the rim, jump, 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 and I have jumper's knee, it's going to affect my knee down the long run. I can't tell you how long, but for people that have jumper's knee, it does affect you if you do not stretch properly at the beginning. Same thing if you have tendonitis in your knees, or if you have bad joints because you're not lifting correctly. If you don't do pre-stretching and post-stretching, you will feel the effects in the long term. So as that parent asked about the stretching day, I didn't want to jump in on that conversation, but yes, you can go hard every day, but you can also create the habit of stretching properly every day. And it takes away from that extra stress you're putting on your body. That's the answer I wanted to give back then, but I just kind of stayed out of the conversation. So that's why I said I agreed with the mom, and I also agreed with Coach Forrest, because Coach Forrest was saying you could train every day. The mom was saying, what about the stretching? There's other things you can do to condition your body, including yoga. I know in the pros, we had to do yoga. We were assigned to go to yoga class and sit in that heat. And it was brutal. It was worse than being on the court. Doing Zumba right now is an actual cardio type workout that you can do. There's tons of things you can do that are a little bit less strenuous than what you may think you're doing with your coach or that you may be putting on your joints. But I always challenge students to do their research. I always tell, and I'm not one to tell coaches this, but I always do like to tell student athletes, know your environment. It's almost the same thing as KYP, we say on the court, know your personnel, know who you're passing to, know who can shoot. But it's the mindset of knowing your environment, because some of us should not be running on cement. It's bad for the joint. Some of us shouldn't be running on a treadmill. You know your body, but if you're stretching before and you're stretching after, your longevity lasts longer moving forward in sports than if you didn't do any of those. Creating a habit in the stretching is important. So for Ryan, perfect example, make sure you're stretching in between riding the bike and lifting weights. Make sure you're stretching.
Yes,
Make sure you're stretching after you're done with that. And I'm not saying it has to be a 15-minute stretch, a 20-minute stretch, but you want to make sure that you have a career. In order to have a career, you've got to stretch. Okay. It doesn't mean you have to change your regimen, your routine, mom, if you're on here, for the 5 days down to 4. But it does mean that you've got to be consistent with your stretching, pre and post. All right. Last question I had. How do you stay obsessed with your passion? This is the big one. Student athlete, how do you stay obsessed with your passion?
Hello.
Yes.
You should do it every day and all day. Anytime you get a chance to do it, you should do it.
Okay. So I'm going to be the devil's advocate right now and say, or I'll just be an advocate. I don't be devil or anything. And just say that, okay, you're saying that, that's great to hear you say, but now all of a sudden girlfriend has come to the gym and has now taken away from my time, and I'm giving my time to her. How do you stay obsessed with your passion? If your passion was basketball, there are distractions. School can be a distraction. Girls can be a distraction. Boys can be a distraction. Anything can be a distraction to designing your habits. So how do you stay obsessed with your passion? Because that right there is what every parent expects to hear from their kid. You stay focused, you go after it. Give me something more. Jalen, go ahead.
You can watch videos on it, research it, learn facts about it, read about it. You
Okay.
can set plans to keep your mind focused on it.
Absolutely. How often do you do that? How often would you recommend?
Not much, but I'm working on it.
No, but I'm just saying, how much would you recommend?
Oh, as much as you can.
Okay, I'm going to be advocate again, just like I was with Jalen. That as much as you can, I want to flip it up. So now I want you to go ask your parent, hey, mom, dad, whoever's in the house, can you guarantee me food for the next week? And I want you to see if they say yes or I will as much as I can. And I want you to think about how your response would be to that. All right, I'm being a little aggressive with it
Ask the
because
question again, Rodney.
I want the student to go and ask the parent, give a scenario, and the parent can give the scenario too. I'm just giving you an open scenario of asking your parent, hey, would you feed me for the next week? And the parent just says, as much as I can. And how you as the student athlete would look at the parent and be like, as much as you can, no, you need to feed me. The mentality's got to change from I'll try or I'll give as much as I can to I'm going to, I will, and get away from the I'm about to. All right. This is for all the student athletes. You've got to get away from that because as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach, we hear it all the time. So you guys have to create that habit that shows us your routine. It's got to show us what you're determined to do. It can't be something that you just talk about. You got to be about it. In order to be about it, get away from that I'm about to, kinda, maybe. Hey, mom, I need the new iPhone. I don't know, maybe. Oh, what do I need to do? So why do you get to ask that question? And we can as parents. Parents, I encourage you to ask the questions. These are grown kids. These are young adults. Sit down and create your goals together. Jalen's goal and his mother's goal may be different, but if they get together, after they write down the goals, they can figure out what those sub goals are. And then Jalen takes those sub goals and creates habits. He takes the least favorite habit, which was the least favorite goal, creates least favorite habits, and creates sub habits. Now he does those things first. Before he knows it, he's got a routine for the week. Similar to what Ryan was saying, that routine now becomes an everyday thing. And now Ryan's incorporating the stretching in there. So longevity after college, on into the pros and on into adulthood, becomes a lot more steady because he's taking care of his body. It's all one big formula. But student athletes, I will tell you again, if you die tonight, what legacy did you leave? If you don't communicate, if you don't go your best, not your hardest, go your best. And if you don't do everything in your power to create better habits, what have you left behind? Because at some point, I always tell student athletes, you're either a name or a number. You decide to be a name by showing your worth, by showing your value. Your value is what you do daily, not what you do next week, not what you do next year, not what you do when you get back to your team, but what you're doing right now. Any questions? Yes. You have a question, Coach?
No.
Okay. So my challenge to all of you guys before I sign off is this. Sit down with your mom, sit down with your dad, grandma, whoever. I don't care who's there. Sit down with somebody, come up with your goals. Not only the student athlete, but the parent too, or the adult. Whatever your goals are for your child, for your student athlete. And then I put the goals together and figure out which ones align to create better habits. And when those habits are created, you'll understand that you're giving them the tools and not the materials. Those are two completely different things. Take time to understand your child's identity. Don't think that you're going to create it for them. Thank you, guys.